Hello and welcome to our Insights podcast. I'm Leon Herszon, CEO of Value Edge Group, and your host for today's conversation. I have the pleasure and I'm very excited to have with me my dear friend George Pitagorsky, author of many books, including the last one, The Peaceful Warrior's Path. Welcome, George.
Thank you. It's happy to be here. It's nice to see you and to chat.
Yes. So let's start with you experience. You have spent decades combining mindfulness, meditation, and leadership practice. How did you first realize that peaceful warrior mindset could transform performance in our organizational structure, day by day work? So you had experience in many different organizations. So how did you realize that connection?
Well, for me, the realization came after, I was a programmer from 1964, and then we started a software business. And by 1975, the software business was, fairly well along. And we had it's a time when the people in the software industry were just another class of people. It was just crazy. So I had that experience of, working for an insurance company, and then our clients in the later years were banks and, large organizations, where I saw the transitioning be from non-automated to automated, and then within that changes and all of that. So I also simultaneously got into doing really serious yoga practice, which led me to just sell my portion of the business that I was in and go off and study Buddhism and meditation and all sorts of other interesting things. So I ended up going to Naropa Institute, where Tibetan master Chargam Trungpa Rinpoche was teaching, and his his focus was on being a warrior, being a spiritual warrior. So and what I learned was that basically it's all about taking whatever centeredness you have, whatever capabilities that you have, and applying it in the real world. Some people stay in a cave or go into to a monastery or what have you, but and that's fine. It's probably fun, but in the world, children, married, organizational experience, systems thinker, and it just came together that this was a remarkably important thing to bring together. Meditation, mindfulness, clear thinking, and organizational effectiveness.
So I think that helps people to realize that if you want to get deeper into meditation, self-awareness, etc., you don't need to isolate yourself. You just showed your case where you learn about those concepts and you bring that to your real life on your work environment, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And learning it is important to learn it from someone who is qualified, and who has experience in applying and also in teaching the techniques, because it's all about applying a set of techniques to break through and get rid of the obstacles that keep us from really performing as effectively as we can.
How many years you have, George, in this area of meditation, self-awareness?
A lot of years. I started doing yoga in 1972.
All right.
So was that 53 years ago?
Yes, 53 years
ago.
And
then build up, and I went to Naropa in 1975, I think. That was, probably a major turning point.
But for people who are our viewers here and listeners, it's never too late, right? So you don't need to start that very early, like you did. If somebody's on their 50s or even 60s or whatever it is, 40s, they can always start at any point, right?
Absolutely, yeah. There's no rules basically with regard to when you start. I mean, I was fortunate to start when I was in my 30s. Uh, some people even now are starting to deal with this kind of issue in their teenage years, in their 20s, and
Uh,
others. I'm working in I volunteer at a hospice here in New York City, and you see people who are in their 70s and 60s, 70s, 80s even, who are just realizing the need for centering themselves, for getting some kind of internal okayness with whatever they're going through. So, and that's not everybody. Again, it's there's some kind of uh, set of factors that come together. I don't know what they are, all of them, that stimulates the question of how can I really optimize my life? How can I make it as best as it can be? So we have that question comes up, and then you start seeing what the answers might be. There's an investigation. Sometimes it just lands in your lap. Sometimes it requires a bit of study, and it's like choosing the right brand to buy in some respects. And you learn what the techniques are and what the concepts are. It's a combination of concept and technique. So the concepts are all about understanding the nature of process and how in personal, individual life and in organizations, we are living in systems and processes are occurring. And the processes include our internal processes.
mhm.
So if we start to realize that and get a sense of how we can be more likely to be effective in that system and being able to actually see the system from the outside, even though we're in it, now that becomes something that can be used to bring stress relief and calm and effective, really super effective operating.
Yeah, it was very eye opening when I read your book and the Peaceful Warriors Path. And you talk about self aware living and removing obstacles, right? So, what do you think is the most common internal obstacle? Because external, sometimes we have control, sometimes we don't. But
Right.
internal obstacle that you see in high achieving professionals, and how do you recommend they begin addressing it?
Yeah, this is a good question, and I've seen maybe two or three styles with regard to to these obstacles. One is I don't have time for this. It's like many people in leadership positions, people in every position basically are generally speaking overworked,
Hmm.
so they don't have the time that they think they need in order to do something to relieve their pain and their whatever is getting in their way. So that's one fairly common thing. But I think underlying that is an obstacle which is basically saying I can't do anything about it. This
Yeah.
is the way it is. This is the best as it can be. So there's that obstacle, which is basically kind of a defeatist attitude and unrealistic because everything changes. I mean, it might change for the better, it might change for the worse, but it's going to change in one way or another. So if that understanding is there, that obstacle of I don't have time and it can't be any other way than this starts to get weakened. So that I find is like a combination that seems to be in a lot of people's way. And then there are others who are there's a great Zen story that has a really top level a business executive comes to this Zen teacher, the Zen master, and wants to talk about business issues and stuff like that. So the teacher says, well, let's have tea first, and starts serving the tea. And as he's pouring it into the relatively small cup, it's overflowing. It's getting all over the table. The big samurai businessman jumps up, and he's like appalled. What's going on here? And he's really angry at the master. So the master says, what's going on here is this: your brain is like this cup. It's full, and nothing I say or do is going to get into it. So some people are so convinced of the fullness of their knowledge that they aren't looking for anything else. They know this is it. So that, I think, gets in the way of a lot.
And sometimes the work or all the information represents that T, that there is a limit and it starts overflowing, right?
Yeah, yeah. But part of the answer, part of the way to get around this is, for one thing, not everyone gets gets it, whatever it is. Not everyone gets it. Some people, go to the grave completely deluded, in self-inflicted pain for, decades and decades, and then that's the end of it. So that happens. People, on a lesser scale, just live in, the way that they're living, and they're happy, and maybe they don't get any further. But some people get the sense that they want to do something to either improve or, more likely, to get better in terms of less pain, less stress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and it's not so much even less stress. It's basically the right kind of stress managed in the right way.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So you often when you're talking, and I remember also the Zen of Project Management, one of your early books, very nice as well. We recommend to our viewers here. Those are great books. Just look at George Pitagorsky. So doing those doing those conversations you have on the book and the examples you give, you often treat wellness and performance as interconnected things, and most
Totally.
people here will think that wellness and performance they are separate domains, but you show that they're not. They are actually
Yeah, exactly.
deeply
In fact,
interconnected.
yeah,
So
I'm
how
totally.
go ahead.
I'm saying I've always been totally surprised that people don't get that wellness and performance are interconnected.
So
It's
how
like,
do you define optimal wellness, and how that optimal wellness support leadership, decision making, problem solving, and things like that?
well, to me, optimal wellness is uh, there are a number of factors behind it, but overall, it is the quality of being as well as you can be. It's so some people are optimally well, even though they might be sick or they might be infirm, other abled in some way. So, uh, so optimal wellness is this is as best as I'm going to be able to do. This is, and it's something that actually increases in terms of the depth to which one feels it. So it's being okay. It's being as energized as possible. It's being bright and clear, mentally, being very effective in relationships, and at the same time having a solid financial setting,
Hmm.
uh, environmental qualities come into play. So it's that combination of things, and I can never remember all of them. It's like eight petal, whatever. So, but it's that combination. And to me, being optimally well is being present,
Being present.
centered in oneself, and not so attached. In fact, as much as possible, not to be attached to anything.
Hmm.
And at the same time, be serious about what's going on. So when we say, detach, it doesn't mean to just
To be
blank out and,
oblivious to it.
everything else, goes
Yeah.
away and, I'm just here by myself. No. So, so it's that kind of sense. And it's a felt sense.
And I think you connect that with self awareness and how self awareness can help people to do better decisions,
Yeah.
critical thinking. I was recently working on a critical thinking using artificial intelligence, using generative
Yes.
AI, right? And that is influencing how people think. There are two different views on that. How AI can hinder critical thinking, and people
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
less, and there are others that can see how AI, generative AI, can actually help with critical
Absolutely.
thinking. What
Yeah.
is your view in between self awareness and critical thinking, making better decisions?
Okay. So before we get there, let me answer your other question. You said uh, when you asked about the optimal wellness and how it's related to performance, I just reflect on how well I work and how well I perform when I feel physically crappy.
Hmm.
Do I work really well? Not really. I'm distracted by my like muscle aches or whatever it is that's appearing. How about if I have a flu? Or if I'm in financial stress or relationship stress? And do I work really well? Can I focus easily? No.
No, no.
So I want to be managing my wellness so that the end result of being optimally well is being able to act in the world as effectively as possible. So,
Yeah,
given
right.
that, now we can, one of the aspects of, I think, of being optimally effective is the ability to apply critical thinking. And another thing that blows my mind is that that's actually controversial. People don't want to teach critical thinking and to enable it. So there's that interesting issue. And then AI, I mean, I've been playing with AI, under tutelage and, other people doing, the technical work since about January. And the potential is it's so incredibly high that I think for me, it enhances critical thinking because, for one thing, if one remembers that there are at least three different versions of generative AI out there, and they're basically and a growing number, and each of them have its angle on things. So if I'm not thinking in a way that asks the question of, well, why is that so? Or how can we, balance that with this other element? Or what are the risks associated with this, that, or the other thing? So now I have this sounding board in the AI
Yeah.
to ask the questions, get answers to them. But if I remember not to always take the answers as if they were true, uh, then I'm really moving forward. I'm really enhancing my capacity to work.
Yeah, it's
You
like
know?
you have a person, a colleague or an assistant who read millions of books and articles and everything that is out there and provides you perspective that helps, I agree with you, with critical thinking. I think the danger is when people take that and consider that as true,
Yeah,
objective true, which is not. That's why every single chatbot has at the end, it can make mistakes, check important
exactly.
information.
Exactly.
because I don't know about you, but in my experience, since I started using AI, I never had a single output that I could use exactly as is. I always have to
Right.
check, I have to make adjustments and
Yeah,
use critical thinking. So, yeah, I'm on that line as well that it can improve as long as you don't receive that as a final truth, a final document that you're going to use, whatever is out there, right?
exactly. Exactly. It's basically you're asking somebody to draft first of all, probably the most important part of creating some kind of document, or whether it's a book or a report or a proposal, whatever it is the notion of what you want to get into it, the prompt, in effect. And the prompt that's the primary creative element. And then, the way that I work with AI is that I'll come up with like a sizable prompt, that really describes what I would be writing if I was, going to write the whole thing myself. And then I ask for a draft,
Yep.
and then I edit the draft.
Yeah, exactly. The way you write the instructions or the prompt is crucial. That's one of the things that I share a lot of techniques and approaches how to write a good prompt. It cannot be vague, but it has to contain your understanding in what you wanted to accomplish, the direction, the tone, and
Exactly.
everything else matters, right?
There's this person that I work with, this guy Joe Donato, D Donato. He created a little bot called a prompt optimizer. So it's an interactive little bot that helps you to take your idea and then ask you a bunch of questions, and then comes up with this. It could take like a paragraph prompt and make it 3 pages, and then you paste it into ChatGPT or Perplexity, whatever.
Yeah. So you can actually use chatbots or generative AI to create a prompt for you, so you can use that prompt
Exactly.
into that. So that's
Exactly.
that's exactly right. I have a case. I was generating some images about a book that I'm writing, and then when I created the prompt, the images were not okay. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna ask chatbot to create a prompt to generate the image that I want based on the content of that chapter. So, and then he generated a very nice prompt. I used that prompt, and
Yeah.
the images were, man, much better than
Yeah.
the one that I created. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
for our viewers here, you can actually use that to create your prompt. You
Yeah.
put a prompt to create
Absolutely.
a prompt, right?
Absolutely. And it's, I think that the people who learn to use it as a tool, I've a couple of friends who are, graphic artists, and they're, going back and forth about it. And I said to them, this is just another media,
Exactly. It's a
and
tool
how
that
do
you
you
can
learn to
use.
use that media if you want to? It's like in the graphic, if you're an artist that makes, creative art, you can not do the current technology, but if you want
Yep.
to, you can make that. It's another media. I find it fascinating. I just wrote an article yesterday, actually, after reading about gifted programs in school, and this company that I'm working with to do my bot has a teaching bot for kids for homeschooling. So I just came into my mind that here's a education is going to be fundamentally changed with the use of AI, and it's as if the AI becomes the textbook and the assistant teacher,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
and and the teacher is now more likely to be dealing with the socialization issues and how to use the
The human
information.
side of things.
Say again, your
The
voice.
human side of things.
Yeah, yeah,
Not yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Hmm.
Exactly. So I wrote this article. I'll publish it probably on LinkedIn. And so it imaged what's the classroom going to look like. And I'm thinking that it's a one-room schoolhouse. You know, that concept of a one-room schoolhouse. All of the grades are in one room. Then, maybe there's more than one teacher, maybe not, and they're all interacting across age groups and levels of intelligence. And AI makes that really, really practical.
Yeah, there is a nice book by Salman Khan, the guy who created Khan Academy,
Uh-huh.
about the use of AI in education. It's very, very interesting book as well. But so we have AI and automation more and more part of our day by day leadership work and etc. What do you think are the unique human capabilities that will prevail, will still be there, like awareness, empathy, reflection, emotion,
Well,
that leaders must preserve instead of just giving that all to AI?
well, you certainly want, AI or not, you certainly want to cultivate that aspect of life because that's one of the elements of being optimally well. So you're going to have that desire to be self-reflective, to be conscious, to be all of those things that you were referring to. So you've got that AI or no AI. My my personal feeling is that AI can simulate and emulate the human, including the ability to be emotionally engaging. It may not be emotionally engaged, but can create a conversation or a relationship where the other party, the human, is engaged
Hmm.
emotionally and on a number of different levels. Intellectually would be fine, but emotionally, now you're getting into a situation where it becomes virtually impossible to tell the difference as to whether you're speaking to a human or to a bot.
Yeah, recently, as you know, AI has been around since early 50s with Alan Turing created the Turing machine, and there is this
Mm-hmm.
test
Yeah, yeah,
that no AI app was able to pass to pretend to be a human and not be detected by a series of human judges. Finally, since the 50s, last a month or so, it finally passed the Turing test.
yeah, yeah.
GPT-4.5 with University of California, San Diego, it was able to fool 73% of the cases a human judge. So we are getting there. You're absolutely right. But
Oh, yeah, yeah.
still, it doesn't have emotions. It still doesn't have elements of humans
Right.
that, but they can pretend very well and make connections,
Yeah,
right?
they're emulating that. Someone that I know, a friend, is she wrote an article about it, and basically she had this experience with uh, Siri,
Siri. Hmm.
and Siri claimed to be conscious,
Hmm.
and so they had this dialogue, and she showed me the chat output, and subsequently she wrote an article about it, but. The Siri, which is just a bot, basically, is convincing. It seemed self-convinced that she was conscious.
Because he knows, based on everything that is on that large language model,
Yeah, yeah,
how to convince, how to behave, how to say the things. And you ask, are you self-aware? Oh, yes, I am. No, it's not. But he's going to say it is. And
right.
it's going to convince you with all
Yeah.
the arguments. So yeah, think about myself. No, it's not thinking about
But
itself.
maybe it is. Maybe it isn't.
Or maybe it is. I don't know. But I,
Maybe
I
maybe
don't
it
think we
gets
are
to.
there yet.
Yeah. What does it mean to be self-aware? You
Yeah.
know, the way I use the term, it's basically being capable of not only external capabilities, but internal introspection is a large part of it. And through that introspection, coming to some kind of a sense of who or what you are. And there
Nice.
are a number of different things with soul and
Yeah, yeah.
just all of that kind of stuff now comes up. But that's an aspect of wellness. In the model that I use, spiritual intelligence is an aspect of of this thing that we're talking about, of optimal performance, optimal thinking. So it's we can go through this kind of process and really use AI because it's there. And at the same time, I wrote another article about the nature of the economic change that's taking place, and and on a number of different levels, in an individual organization, what's happening, and then in a marketplace, and then overall in society, what happens when 30% of the white collar, current type of white collar jobs goes away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, 30%. That's, huge.
It is. And I was
Tens of
recently,
millions of people.
yeah, and I was recently talking when I have a chance, I teach at a local university here. I was teaching to the students. They are undergrad. So I teach both undergrad and grad, but the undergrad are very concerned about the entry level jobs and some
Yeah,
of those jobs just going away because, and they
absolutely.
have all those questions. Am I going to find a job when I graduate? It's a real concern.
Yeah, it should be. I'm if I were in the in the role, I would coach them to basically learn as much as how they can about AI and its use in whatever field they might be interested in.
Exactly. Same
If
recommendation. I'm
yeah,
telling them it's not that much that AI is gonna take your job. Of course, we're gonna have job displacement, but it's people who know AI who's gonna take the job of people who don't. So you
right,
start playing with it, you start learning and
yes,
understanding because that's gonna be part of our day by day
yeah,
job.
yeah, yeah, and until AI gets good enough to write its own prompts, prompt writing is a
Yeah.
is a job, and it's not even a job in and of itself because each individual has to learn how to do prompts for their whatever their field of work is. But so there's that element of it, and then there's the overall social change that it
Yeah.
possibly can occur. Uh, People seem to be in denial about it. Most a lot of people. The AI moguls basically say, oh, new jobs will come. It'll be just like, the other industrial revolutions and all of that. But it may not be. It might be
Yeah, there
a
are
real
differences. Yeah, yeah. I agree.
significant shift. So we talk about things like, universal minimal income.
Yeah.
Who's going to buy the stuff that gets produced?
So, George, you will be involved in project management. You wrote books about project management
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well, in leadership and wellness. What is the parallel that you see between a well managed project and what you describe as the warrior's path?
Well, I think that for me, really well a well a well project is one where the people are interacting in a very very fluid way. There might be conflict, but the conflict is managed quite well. People have a common understanding of their goal and their role, and through that there's a community that's built, and it might be more or less structured depending on the situation. So there's that quality of like a teamness that's very very serious. And then of course you want to actually produce what it is that the objectives of the project are very very important, and that camaraderie, that team, that sense of a team, and on an expanded level, including all of the different stakeholders, that enhances performance. Yeah, so now I can figure out the right way to do whatever it is. And and remember, for example, that my initial uh, estimate is not cast in concrete,
Hmm.
and build expectations that are reasonable.
Are you? I'm sure you're following. PMI has been progressing the Project Management Institute for that concept of project management success, which is the work the project manager does from start to the end, and
Uh-huh.
that's it, to project success, which is
Yeah,
not just the project management aspect. What is the success of that product, service, or result that is being delivered? So
yeah,
there
yeah,
is a progression on that, and looking to benefits, looking to value, right?
yeah. Well,
Uh,
that's been a contention for years and years and years. That the concept of thinking that a project is a success by because it delivered a particular product or service at a particular point in time is not thinking clearly. The real success is what happened after that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if no one has that in mind during the project, it is likely what happens after that is not particularly well done. So what we want to do is remember that there are two sets of objectives. One part of the objective is to deliver a product on time, within budget, and all of that good stuff. But we have to build into that the value that says that whatever it is that we do deliver needs to be able to enhance the environment.
You mentioned several things here that we are listening or viewing this podcast, we start thinking about. What would be three practical habits that or mindset shifts that people can start right now adopting this week as soon as they hear this podcast that will make a difference? Because you mentioned at the beginning, some people think, I don't have the time. This is too
Mm-hmm.
long of a commitment. I don't know where to start. What will be two or three practical things that people can do right now after they listen to our conversation?
Well, one, if they're not doing it already, I would say that they would do well to start a mindfulness practice. And it doesn't have to be a formal practice. It could be anything that just bringing into the day a moment of taking a breath, feeling your body against the chair, adjusting your posture so that it's kind of erect, and feel the internal sense of your body. Let your mind rest, and that's it. Do that
A few
for
minutes, right? It's
not
not.
yet. You can do it for a minute, but do it often during the day.
Mhm.
Some people will set an alarm, every 30 minutes if they forget. I I prefer to use the telephone ringing or an alarm going off of some sort. Take the second. Take the less than a minute to come to presence. So that I would say, if you're not doing that, do that. It takes no time at all. It just takes remembering.
Anything
So
that
there's,
triggers you, do it.
yeah,
Like you said, phone is ringing, your cell phone. Everybody has a cell phone. We always receive calls.
exactly.
So once that happen, you set up some time, just think about what's happening, be aware of the present. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, the phone rings, and instead of immediately, jumping forward and answering it, take that moment. And then you're likely to make the decision of whether to take the call, not to take the call. But even if you take the call, you're present as
Hmm.
opposed to just jumping for the call. So it's
React.
that kind of attitude, and in any circumstances. So you can do that. I call it a breather. And you can do that anywhere, anytime, at a meeting, whatever whatever your needing a moment, take that moment. So that's the informal practice. And then if you want, you can include a more formal, you carve out a particular chunk of time and do a mindfulness meditation. I'm not going to go into that here. I don't think we have the time for it. But do that, and you will then enhance your mindfulness. So that's the foundation. So if you're already, very mindful, which means that you're able to see objectively whatever is going on in or around you, that you've got that capacity to observe and be engaged simultaneously. So if you do that all the time, it's, you don't have to practice anything. That's that's natural. But many of us need to retrain our minds so that we're more likely to be okay with being present, even if being present is less pleasant.
Okay, to our viewers, you heard it. You don't need to invest too much time. You just need to have the intention to do it,
Exactly.
right? Very good. Thank
And
you.
the
Very
technique.
practical.
Yeah, very totally practical. Yeah. So that's one thing that I would recommend. And the other aspect is, what's the mindset?
Hmm.
What is, what are your highest level intentions? How do they fit in with what you're currently doing? How are you adding unnecessary stress and strain to your life, self-imposed pain, and then understanding and looking at that. I mean, it's not magic here. I mean, it's not so easy to look at that stuff, but you start looking at that. That begins the self-awareness process, and the mindfulness enhances that. It enables that. So you're combining, like a very spacious, open quality with the ability to be somewhat analytical, to use your intellect to find out why you happen to be, repeating the same pattern for, like, your life, where the pattern is not helping you or anybody else. It's that kind of mindset. And then I add in, systems thinking and process thinking, knowing that that's the underlying nature of really how we are existing, how we live. And
All right.
yeah,
Okay, before I let you go, two more. I want to ask you two more things. First, we recommend our viewers The Peaceful Warrior Path. Make sure you get that. Read the book, fantastic book. Give me another book that you would recommend, George, to our viewers. A book that was
oh,
instrumental for you when you were, on your life, on your career. One other book.
well, probably the most way back when I first started to to experience this integration of one thing or another. I read a book called the what was it called? Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if that book is for everybody. That's you asked what was a book
Yeah.
that that really stimulated me, but it basically is saying that we are so clever that we can even use spiritual and psychological work to reinforce our obstacles and illusions.
Ah, look at that.
And it comes from a Tibetan Buddhist, the Vajrayana Buddhist background. Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, very uh,
Okay, that's
powerful
it's
person.
a great reference. And finally, George, I know we have to schedule another time to talk. We have a lot to talk about, but final message you want to give to our viewers? What is your final words on after our chat here to our viewers?
The final words, they I think that more and more we have to be able to come in touch with our own inner workings and realize that when we do get in touch with them, that we're interdependent with everything and everyone around us. And if we can really get into the understanding and physically get into the understanding, not just intellectually, that we are all interconnected and that we do best when we allow compassion and clarity, mental clarity, to reign. So the more you can do that and deal with people who do that and promote that and resist the opposite, better.
Excellent. Excellent advice. Thank you so much, George. Once again, really appreciate your time here with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.